Nearly 13 years in prison, over 20 years as an attorney. Needless to say, I learned a few things. All right, NTB, man. So, someone asked, could I expound a little bit upon the RICO video that I did, just to answer a couple of questions that they had. To expound a little bit more, let me just give my assessment from what I see in the news, reading the blogs, phone calls that I get from guys, who have particular situations. Historically, law enforcement has always tried to manage the streets. They want to manage the streets in a lot of different ways, right? And so one of the ways they want to do street management is the crime. But they want to manage the crime, particularly violent crime, crimes that's going to really disrupt the community. And certain cities right now, and historically, certain cities are always pretty much at front and center in terms of the need for street management, so to speak. Some history you need to know, quick. There was a case that came out called Terryville, Ohio. When Terryville, Ohio came out, law enforcement jumped on that. That's the case that established that frisk is not a per se violation of your rights. And so the police, based upon reasonable suspicion, they could stop you, frisk you, yada, yada, yada. When that case came down from the Supreme Court, law enforcement agencies all across the country started stepping up their game in terms of stop and frisk. And a lot of people said that it was being used, even in New York particularly, anybody know New York, it was being used more of a racial tactic rather than a law enforcement tactic, or it bent towards racial harassment. Police counted that it wasn't racial harassment, that it was more about legitimate law enforcement needs. Others whispered that it was all about guns. It was about taking guns off the street, so they would stop and frisk and making up so-called reasonable suspicion to hundreds of thousands of young men all across the country, many black and Latinos particularly. Anyway, beyond that, as there was a big uproar about the stop and frisk policies in New York and across the country, and law enforcement agencies all across the country was getting a lot of heat. Federal judges even stepped in New York. They basically put a stop to it pretty much. It's still used, but not at the rate it's being used way back in the day in the 90s. 2000. So anyway, once that tool has been taken out of the toolbox and thrown into the junkyard, so to speak, my assessment is just looking at the lay of the land, it seems to me that RICO charges is a pretty potent weapon in the toolbox. To a certain extent, much more potent than stop and frisk. A lot of the times the stop and frisk, nothing was even caught. Guys ain't have nothing. So you're stopping hundreds of guys for one gun, thousands of guys for a few guns, and you causing so much disharmony and distrust within the communities and the police. But anyway, back to the RICO. RICO is different. Whereas you could look at stop and frisk as a shotgun blast. Just everybody get hit with it. RICO is more like sniper shots. It targets certain people. That you can target the most dangerous people, the most violent people, allegedly, of course, But the streets be talking and the feds be listening. The streets be talking, the police be listening, and the feds and the police are going to work together. So they know basically what's going on in the streets. So it's all about now just tactically, doing some mop-up operations, so to speak. The thing is, and I don't know the efficacy of this RICO approach to crime fighting that seems to be more prevalent now than in the days going past. And I don't have any solid data to say that it's being used more. Just anecdotally, it just appears that it's being used more from what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm reading. And so if that is the case and it's being used, the effect of it is that you target certain groups. You target certain crews, you target certain organizations, you target certain street gangs, right? And you go in there and you net them all up. Again, I don't know how effective this is going to be. I know it's a devastating thing to get caught up in, that RICO charge, but I also know, and I'll give people fair warning that, on both sides, the street guys and law enforcement, and I'm sure law enforcement has already figured it out, that it's potentially going to be collateral damage. Just like with stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is really, you're trying to get guns off the street, but it's so much collateral damage because you're stopping hundreds and hundreds of innocent people a day, throwing them up on the wall, patting them down, causing embarrassment, shame, and anger. So that's the collateral damage. The collateral damage for a RICO charge is so much more at an individual level. A little because if you say, for instance, you're a guy who just kind of like hang out with the guys, you know, these guys are doing wrong, and you kind of like, you know, you live in the same building as one of the guys, y'all went to school together, you know, y'all were day one friends. You're not really connected to them, but that's your boy, and his boys are your boys. They know you, you know them. Sometimes you roll with them. And that close connection is the collateral damage that I'm talking about. When I was a young guy, I used to hang out with my boy who was a DJ. And for y'all old heads, y'all know about carrying the crates. I would basically carry the crates, and he's throwing parties, and I'm just there. I'm rolling. I'm not involved in any illegal activity. He wasn't either. I'm just using this as an example. But if every time people see him, they see me, they see me, they see him, you know, that connection starts to, you understand, be made. And that's what I'm talking about, the collateral damage, because some of these, like, for instance, these so-called rap crews, you got guys who are hanging with these rap crews, and some of the rap crews allegedly, according to some of the, you know, the news, you know, you gotta take that with a grain of salt. Sometimes might be involved with some criminal activity. You got some high-profile cases going on right now with some rap crews fighting these RICO charges, and a lot of people got scooped up. How many of them guys were just like me, just a guy carrying the crates? You understand? So that's the danger. So anyway, we'll talk some more. Beware, this RICO is no joke. How successful it's going to be in terms of really fighting crime, only time will tell. But again, my assessment is that there's going to be some collateral damage, guys. So if you're in those streets and you're rolling with those dudes and you're not really with it, but it looked like you might be with it, you know, beware, be on guard, and be prepared for that potential RICO. It ain't no joke. NTP, man. Follow for more.